Hello, welcome to Guidancee Education channel. In this video, the topic discussed are types of unit cells, basis of classification of unit cells, variance of each type of unit cells, contribution of each particle in different cubical lattices. Click the I button to watch my previous video on crystal lattices and close packing. Thank you. We will discuss unit cells, otherwise called crystal systems. The basic three-dimensional repeating units in a crystal lattice is called unit cells or crystal system. There are 7 types of unit cells. We will discuss one by one. But what is the basis or criteria of this classification? 1. Axial length, and 2. Axial angle. The unit cells are three-dimensional structures. The 3 axes may be represented as X, Y and Z. These axes may be considered as the 3 edges A, B and C. Length of these axes is called axial length. The angle subtended by these edges at the corner is what you call axial angle. The angle subtended by A and B is equal to gamma, and that by B and C is represented by alpha, and A and C is represented by beta. The magnitude of these angles are also compared while doing classification. Okay. Now we will discuss and note down the details. The first one is cubic. Axial length A is equal to B is equal to C. All the 3 edges are of same size. What about axial angles? Axial angle alpha is equal to beta is equal to gamma, and all of them are 90 degrees. That means the edges are mutually perpendicular. The second one is tetragonal. Axial length A is equal to B, but it is not equal to edge C. So here the edge C is unequal. The axial angles alpha is equal to beta is equal to gamma, and it is equal to 90 degrees. So here also the edges are mutually perpendicular. So it is applicable here also. Now the third one, orthorhombic. The edges A, B and C are unequal. Axial angles alpha equal to beta equal to gamma equal to 90 degrees. So here also the sides are mutually perpendicular. Next one, monoclinic. Edges are unequal. Here axial angles alpha equal to gamma equal to 90 degrees but not equal to beta. So edge B and A, similarly B and C are at right angles. So this angle and this angle are perpendicular, but this angle is not perpendicular. Fifth one, triclinic. All the 3 edges are unequal. All the angles are unequal and also not equal to 90 degrees. So the sides are not mutually perpendicular. Sixth one, rhombohedral. All the sides are equal, just as cubic, but the angles are all equal but not equal to 90 degrees. In the previous case, they are not mutually perpendicular and they are unequal. Here they are equal but not perpendicular. Now the 7th and last one, hexagonal. A equal to B but not equal to C. Similar to tetragonal, but the angles are different. Angle alpha is equal to beta equal to 90 degrees and gamma is equal to 120 degrees. I will erase this portion. Now it is clear. So these are the characteristics of the 7 types of unit cells. All types of unit cells excepting hexagonal unit cells have 8 corners. A particle is represented at each corner. The hexagonal unit cell has 12 corners. Here also a particle occupies each corner. Each such point is called lattice point. Though the particles are represented at the corners, the particles actually occupy the major volume of the cell. In addition to these particles, Particles may be present on the sides or also in the center of the body. So these types are further classified into a few types. We shall see that also briefly. Do not skip the video. Understanding these concepts only will help you do problems and attempt certain questions based on these portions. Now let us see the variants of each type of unit cell. First we will see the variants of cubic unit cells. There are three types of cubic unit cells. They are simple, body-centered and face-centered. Unit cells can be represented in two different ways, as open structure and as space-filling structure. Let us see the open structure. Let us draw a cube. Cells are represented as if they are present only on the corners, but we know in close packing the particles are arranged in such a manner that maximum space is consumed, only minimum space is vacant. But this is one method to understand it. We will see the open structure of all these variants and then go on to discuss the space filling structure of these three types, that is simple, body-centered and face-centered cubical cells. Okay. This is the simple cubical type. You find particles only at the corner. This type. And the next one, it is body-centered. This type. There is an additional particle in the center of the cell. Now, face-centered. This is the face-centered type. This is one face. This is yet another face. So there are 6 faces altogether. So in addition to these 8 particles at the corner, each face has a particle. Variants of the second type of unit cell, tetragonal. There are 2 types of them. One is simple and the other is body-centered. The simple type, there are particles only at the corners. This is the body-centered with one additional particle in the center. Variants of the third type, that is orthorhombic or rhombic. There are 4 types: simple, body-centered, end-centered and face-centered. This is the simple rhombic type with particles at the 8 corners. This is the body-centered with a particle in the center of the unit cell. This is the end-centered type. This is the end face. These 2 faces, one at the top and one at the bottom, are called end faces. There is 1 particle each at the end center. This is the face-centered type. There are 6 faces and each face has 1 additional particle. Now the variants of the fourth type of unit cell, namely monoclinic type. There are 2 types, simple and body-centered. This is the simple type, particles at the corners only. This is the monoclinic body-centered type with 1 additional particle in the center only. Now variants of the fifth type of unit cell, the triclinic unit cell. This is the most unsymmetrical of all the different 7 types of unit cells, and the cubical cell is the most symmetrical. In this type there is only 1 type and that is simple. Let us see that. So this is the triclinic simple type.
Sixth one,
rhombohedral, and there is 1 type only in this and that is also simple type. This is the simple rhombohedral type. The 7th one is the hexagonal with only 1 type, that is simple. The total number of variants belonging to all these 7 different types is equal to 14. These 14 different types of unit cells in 3-dimensional packing give rise to 14 different types of crystal lattices. Now we will see the space filling representation of unit cells. We will see the space filling structure of these three, that is the three different types of cubic unit cells, namely simple, body-centered and face-centered. This is a simple cubic cell. These are the four particles at the top. These are the four particles at the bottom forming this cube-like structure. In the open structure, its representation is like this. I hope it is clear. This is the body-centered cubical cell. There is an additional particle in the center. These four particles are these four particles. Similarly at the bottom also. This is one additional particle. This is the face-centered cubical cell 1, 2, 3 and 4. In the open structure 1, 2, 3 and 4 form one face. This is the additional particle in that face. Similarly on the other faces also there are particles. So in this diagram we can see 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 particles. There should be one more particle that is present there. It is on the other side. We cannot see that in this picture. We have shown here isolated unit cells, but when the lattice is formed, that is when these unit cells are placed in 3 dimension, how many particles can be claimed by one cell? Particles at the corners and sides are shared by adjacent cells in 3 dimension. We will try to understand that. Lattice formation from cubical type of unit cells and sharing of particles by adjacent unit cells. We will discuss sharing of particles by adjacent unit cells in 4 different types of lattices. First one is simple or primitive cubical lattice. End-centered cubical lattice, face-centered cubical lattice and body-centered cubical lattice. In end-centered cubical lattice, only the end faces of the unit cells share the particles, unlike the case of face-centered cubical lattice where all the faces are shared by adjacent unit cells. End-centered cubical cells were discussed under rhombic type of unit cells. Anyway, we will discuss that type also under this because such terms are used in problems. So we need to know that. Okay. Each type of cubical lattice is formed from the corresponding basic types of unit cells. Lattice means 3-dimensional arrangement. First we will take up simple cubical lattice. This is the first cell. We will consider one particle at a particular corner and see how it is shared when the lattice is formed. Second cell, another cell behind the second cell, fourth one behind the first cell, fifth one above the third, sixth one above the fourth, seventh one above the second and eighth one above the first. You can see the particle is shared by one particular corner of all these 8 cells. Therefore, this particle is claimed by all the 8 cells which meet at that point. So, one particular unit cell can claim only 1/8 of this particle. This is the case of all particles in the corners. We will note this there. Now for face-centered, we will see just one face and apply it for other faces as well. Corner particles are not shown. This is the particle at one face. It is shared by one face of the next cubic cell. So actually each cell can claim only half of this particle. We will note it here. Now end-centered cubical lattice. In this case, in addition to the 8 particles in the corners, one additional particle is present in the end face. This is shared by the end face of the next neighboring cell lying below this. That is how I have shown it here. So in this case also, each cell can claim only half of the particle. Let us note it there. For body-centered, one additional particle is present in the center of the cell, and when other cells are placed around it, then it cannot be shared by them, so the whole particle belongs to that unit cell only. We will note all these points here. In the next video, we will do the calculation of number of particles belonging to each type of unit cell in a few lattices. Thank you.